So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. We'll back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Tuesday, March 2nd. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day. Yes, their day. It is, in fact, Tuesday, March 2nd here today. The Yankees play their third spring training game today against the Baltimore Orioles. That should be a good game, 7-inning game again, as obviously the MLB has the rules where you could play a 7-inning game, 5-inning game, or a 9-inning game. So to start it off, we are playing 7-inning games for the first couple games of the season, and then we're finishing off with a lot of 9-inning games. And as you get closer and closer to opening day, you'll start to play more 9-inning games, start to play more baseball, see guys get more playing time, as it's only the third spring training game of the season. So that is good. We're moving right along, though. We're moving along. Each day gets closer and closer and closer to opening day, which is April 1st. Yankees, Blue Jays, I believe, open up at Yankee Stadium. Will be, I believe, the opening day. And then obviously you got the rest of the 162 games slate. So really exciting. I'm super excited for the season. I'm excited to see baseball back. It's great to see baseball back. And the Yankees got their first spring training win yesterday against the Detroit Tigers. They looked good doing it. Gittins, I think his name is, hit a grand slam. Gary Sanchez, who a lot of people have been saying he's going to have a really good year, he had a home run. So, a really long home run. So that was good to see. Hopefully he can go back to the old Gary Sanchez, because if that's the case, then that's really good. But we'll see how that plays out, right? It's one at-bat in spring training, so we want to see how that all plays out. Nets won yesterday. To kind of recap the night of sports. So pretty good. It was a good day in sports yesterday. Nets won. The Yankees won. Kentucky plays today. Rangers also play today. It's perfect timing, though. Rangers play today. Right when the Rangers game is done, Kentucky comes on. So that's going to be perfect timing, so I'll be able to watch both games fully, so that should be good. Not have to do one on the phone, one on the TV. I'll be able to do both games. Rangers, and then right after the Rangers game will be Kentucky, so that should be good. Obviously Rangers trying to get another win yesterday. Today, Nets obviously played today. Nets won in overtime yesterday, 124-113. We looked good. We had a late mistake. We blew a 7-point lead late, which made it choppy. Definitely did not need to go into overtime, but we did. But we were still able to finish it out. We were still able to get the win. I was very angry. When we went into overtime, I was really, I was a little scared. I was a little scared when we went into overtime because we didn't need overtime. We blew the lead late, which forced overtime, but we still got the win, so it doesn't matter. But all I'm saying is it definitely could have been a regulation win. But we got the win, so I can't complain. We got the win. But these are the topics for today. Some rumors going around the MLB. Obviously, now it's spring training is, in full swing now, and teams are starting to do that. This is usually a prime time to talk about contract extensions before the season starts. So a lot of players want to get contract extensions done before the season starts. They want to get deals done before the season starts, and ultimately your couple of the players out there want to sign with the team before the season starts. So there's rumors coming out today that Trevor Story and the Rockies are not going to expect to sign a contract anytime soon. And tomorrow, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about Francisco Lindor and Michael Conforto's contract rumors. I thought this was big news because we've all know the Colorado Rockies have been tearing things down the past couple weeks, and obviously they got rid of Nolan Arenado, Carlos Gonzalez, Ian Desmond opted out. Now Trevor Story is still on the team, but they're expected not to re-sign him or expected not to give him a contract extension anytime soon, which could be a sign of things to come. It could be a sign of, possible things to come of him not returning with the team, him going to another team, whatever the case may be. So I want to get into it, and I really want to go deep dive into the Colorado Rockies because this was an organization that a couple years ago was one or two pieces away from making a World Series and making an ultimately trying to win a World Series. They were making playoffs. They were looking good doing it. They ultimately were close to winning the World Series. That was a team a couple years ago. They're only a couple years removed from being one of the better hitting teams in baseball. And they, instead of trying to get one or two acquisitions, they've gotten rid of almost everybody. And I'll tell you why the Rockies have done what they're about to enter is a massive rebuild. They have done it completely backwards. And this this is a rebuild that's going to take a long time for the Colorado Rockies. And mark my word, now, if we're sitting here in October talking about the Rockies making the playoffs, then I'm wrong. But what they've done in the past couple years to that team, to those teams that they had, has been absolutely terrible. And I'll tell you why. The Colorado Rockies, every year, if they continue to give credit their stars, they're only taking a step backwards, not taking step forwards. So I'll tell you why. With the Rockies. And then we got Chris Godwin rumors as well. The Buccaneers report came out that the Buccaneers are planning on giving Chris Godwin a franchise tag. So they're not planning on signing him to a long-term deal. They're not going to let him walk into free agency. They're going to franchise tag him. More than likely, that's what it seems like. This is not official, but more than likely, he will be the first big-name receiver to either get a franchise tag or obviously the first big-name receiver to really get something happen to him, whether that's going into free agency, whether that's getting traded, or whatever the case may be. One of the first big-name receivers, as the Buccaneers are going to try their best to keep last year's team together and try to win another Super Bowl. And obviously, Chris Godwin was not only a receiver, not only a player on that team, but he was a big-time player and a big part of that Super Bowl winning team. So I'll tell you why that's good for the Buccaneers. Then to finish out the podcast, we got New York Sports Update, your usual college basketball. Kentucky today, obviously they play NBA, NHL, and fantasy. And then your rest of your New York Sports Update. Mets play today. Yankees also play today against the Orioles. Mets play today. Yankees play today. The Rangers played today, Nets played yesterday, Knicks also played today. So really packed sports day to be honest, in New York sports and just sports in general. Packed sports day today. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So Trevor Story rumors, Rockies contract extension won't happen anytime soon. So to be honest, before I get fully into this topic, as we all know, spring training has officially started. Teams have been starting to do spring training games and training and all that kind of stuff. We already know that. I don't know, it's old news at this point. And obviously, with spring training starting, brings a lot of, contract extension talks, players, the last-minute players that are trying to sign deals and stuff like that. Guys like Jake Odorizzi, guys like Jackie Bradley Jr., guys like that who are still out there on the market, that are still out there trying to find a team, trying to join a team, trying to get on a team that obviously fits them best, both money-wise and obviously gives them the best chance to succeed. So you obviously have a couple of those players, guys like Jake Odorizzi and Jackie Bradley Jr. are probably the two main guys that are still out there looking for a job. And to be honest, as spring training goes along, you'll see these players eventually start to, sign with teams. But for the time being, I would say that the Jackie Bradley Jr.'s and Jake Odorizzi contract talks have kind of slowed down, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see those guys don't sign with a team for this year. They could just be a free agent for the year and, train on their own, do their own thing, and come back next season better than ever. Sometimes players do that. They won't play that year. They'll be a free agent, and then they'll train. They will train, and continue to train. And then when they come back, they'll be one of the top free agents on the board just because they they weren't on a team. That's what you'll probably see. I don't foresee Jake Odorizzi or Jackie Bradley Jr. getting signed anytime soon. The contract negotiations have completely dropped, and they completely slowed down with them. But as it's kind of funny because you usually have the separate part of the offseason, right? You have the part where you started off with, the winter meetings, which is where negotiations originally start. You'll have your trades. That's usually when the trades and stuff go down. You have your trades, you have your signings. And then, throughout the offseason, it's signings, it's little acquisitions, it's little trades here and there. It's, I'll give you this guy for this guy. It's little trades here and there, right? Teams are always making moves. I mean, the Yankees made a move yesterday. They got a guy, Greg Allen, who they transferred him to their AAA roster. He's still on the major league spring training roster. Like I'm not going to sit here and talk about it, but they make moves. Every team makes little moves here and there, whether that's a trade into AAA, whether that's moving a guy to the roster, whether that's putting a guy to another roster, whether that's getting some more cash or something like that. There's always teams making some moves or whatever the case may be. But usually now, about the time of spring training, is where you start to see contract extensions are talked, where you start to see teams and the players and the respective players that want the contract extensions start to get talked. And a lot of times why these teams do it, and like I said, I'm going to get into Trevor Story in a second. I'm not going to talk about this for the whole time. But why teams usually do this is, and players usually push to try to get a contract extension before the season starts, is number one, They want to go into the season, not with much pressure on them. They want to go into the season with the outside noise of, is this guy going to sign a contract extension, right? They want to go into a season, I think, secure, knowing they're going to be on the team for the remaining of the year and years to come. And I think that definitely does relieve pressure because, everybody can do it. Like, if you're going to a season where your contract is up at the end of the year, you're definitely going to face a little bit more pressure knowing that, your contract's up or this season could debate on whether you get this amount of money or this amount, right? So, in a way, it's a little bit of a trick. Players try to get the contract extensions done before the year so then they can go into the year, already have their contract extension and not have to worry about playing at this insanely high level or playing, or worrying about, impressing the coaches too much because they've already got their contract extension. We've seen players like Michael Conforto. We've seen players like Francisco Lindor, Trevor Story. We've seen guys like Carlos Correa have spoken out and said that they would like to start negotiating contracts right about now. And it makes sense because, you want to negotiate a contract. Obviously, if you want to be with that team, you're going to be with that team. And Carlos Correa says he doesn't know if he's going to negotiate much more unless if it's done before the season. So a lot of times players like to get it done before the season. And this leads into my point of the Colorado Rockies and the situation in Trevor Story, right? The Astros and Carlos Correa, they want to get that deal done. The Mets and Michael Conforto and Francisco Lindor, they want to get the deal done. The Yankees, they don't got players that really want contract extensions. We gave LeMahieu his big one. Next year, Judge will be the big story, will be the big headline, but that's next year. That's not right now. So right now, the Astros are okay with giving Correa the money. They just got to negotiate on it. And the same thing with the Mets. Francisco Lindor and Michael Conforto are both negotiating. Sandy Alderson, the president and stuff like that, are ready to open negotiation and talks. And this is what leads into my Colorado Rockies segment here involving Trevor Story. So Trevor Story is the all-star shortstop for the Colorado Rockies, and he's been with the team for a little bit now, has been with the team. And I would say him and Nolan Arenado have really been the big guys the past couple years, have really been the big names on that team for the past couple seasons. I would go ahead and say now that Nolan Arenado is gone, I would go ahead and say Trevor Story is probably the face of the franchise, although the face of the franchise right now is kind of vacant for them because there's not that one guy that everyone talks about. But Trevor Story, I would go ahead and say one of the better shortstops in the league, both hitting and fielding wise. I would definitely go ahead and say could be probably the face of the franchise. I mean, you could say Charlie Blackmon is. You could still say that, different guys like Nolan Arenado. You could even still say Nolan Arenado is one of the best of all time there, but, he's not on the team anymore. But I would say so much right now, Trevor Story is probably the face of the franchise. And this is what the problem is all these other teams, and this is where the Colorado Rockies are doing things backwards, right? All these other teams are open and willing to negotiate contracts with players. Whether that's the Mets, open and negotiating with Francisco Lindor and Michael Conforto, or even whether that's the player, like a Michael Conforto or Francisco Lindor, that's opening to willing to talk trade or to talk contract extensions with that team. And right now, the Trevor Story, who I think is one of the best shortstops in the MLB right now. I mean, it's true. And I'm not just saying this just because I'm talking about him right now. Trevor Story is single-handedly one of the best shortstops in the MLB. Him and Francisco Lindor, they had one of the best infields in baseball going for a long time there. For a long time in Colorado. Now Nolan Arenado, my bad. Now Nolan Arenado's gone, and next up, Trevor Story might be gone as well. And Trevor Story, I have a very weird and odd feeling. Not really odd feeling, because I have a really good feeling that it's going to happen. But Trevor Story is going to be the next one to either get traded or enter free agency and not stay with the Colorado Rockies either next season or maybe mid-year this year. And the Colorado Rockies are completely doing things backwards, okay? Trevor Story is open to negotiating, right? And, the Colorado Rockies aren't open, though. Because what the Rockies want to do is, and I'm not saying this is true, but the Rockies are doing everything backwards. They're doing things backwards. They're taking a roster that still had so much talent on it, and they're just destroying it. Like, there's no need to do that at times, right? There's a time to enter a rebuild, and there's also times to not enter a rebuild. I'll give you an example. A team like the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they are a team that, and this is an example here, they are a team that would probably have a good time to enter a rebuild. It's a lot of old players. The coach has been there for a while. It's an older team. They've been struggling. This would probably be a good time to bring in new guys, start a new coaching staff, start fresh, right? Colorado Rockies, though, have a lot of young players, have a good amount of talent like Nolan Arenado, or they did because he's not with them anymore, but good amount of talent that could still, be solid and win games. That's not when you enter a rebuild. You enter a rebuild when your team's struggling and your superstars, like for example the Pittsburgh Steelers here, Big Ben, who has been with you guys for a long time, has been struggling. That's when you enter a rebuild. Not in the Colorado Rockies situation where you still have two of the best, if not the best, infielders at their respective positions in Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado. Now, Nolan Arenado is not on the team anymore. So when I say that, I mean before he was on the team. Before, when Nolan Arenado was on the Rockies, you're talking about one of the best infields in baseball. You're talking about a guy who every single year of his career has won a Gold Glove Award at third base. You're talking about an all-star shortstop in Trevor Story, who is one of the best prospects, came up through the Rockies organization, has been dominant ever since he came into the league. You're talking about a guy who other teams are going to look at and want. You're going to look at a guy that other teams are going to look at and want to, you're going to look at other teams that are going to want Trevor Story. Not saying the Yankees are going to get him, but there was rumors the Yankees were going to target him if a contract extension isn't done, and at the end of the year, he's a free agent, he hits the open market. The Colorado Rockies are doing these things backwards, okay? They are doing these things backwards. This is only a team that was a couple years removed from having guys like Carlos Gonzalez, from having a guy like Nolan Arenado, and in this case, having a guy like a Trevor Story. And if I was you always have a building block, right, in anything you do. Whether that's a job, whatever the case may be, you always have a building block, and you build around it. And franchises in sports, you're always going to have someone to build around. And I've been a person that talks about that a lot on this podcast. Building blocks, right? Things you build around. Players you want to build around. For example, with the Jets, or let's just say the Yankees, a player you're going to want to build around is like, a player you're going to want to start, or not even just, let's remove baseball here for a second. Like, Trevor Story could be a guy now, he's still younger into his career, that you could build around. Get him guys in the infield that he can communicate with well. Not just straight up get rid of them, completely forget about him and forget about it, right? Just forget about him, right? And the Rockies are doing this backwards. And the Rockies really messed themselves up, giving Nolan Arenado that big deal, and then a couple years later, trading him, because now your cap space is completely ruined. You should have just kept Nolan Arenado. The amount of dead cap money that they have with Nolan Arenado is insane, which really hurts their cap, which is possibly part of the reasons why they can't re-sign Trevor, or why they can't give Trevor Story a contract extension. And Trevor Story, a guy who definitely deserves to be on a contending team now, he might be gone as well. Maybe he'll play out this year, but may be gone next season. And if you can't get him a contract extension, this is your only hope to trying to keep this Rockies team semi-okay. Ian Desmond opted out again, so there's a power bat in the lineup you're losing. Soon it's just going to be Charlie Blackmon, and that's it. Because now Trevor Story more than likely will not be returning next season. Or he could very well get traded. And not giving him a contract extension won't happen anytime soon. Going into the season with not a set contract with Trevor Story is not a good idea. Comment down below. If you had an all-star shortstop and you could pay him, would you give him the money? I would. You know how important infielding is? And then when people out there are going to complain about the infielding, well, you should have gave the guy the money. Right? You should have gave the guy the money. And if the Rockies don't have enough money, well, that's also on them for giving Nolan Arenado that big 7-year deal. That was the fourth largest contract in the MLB. And then saying, you know what? Forget about that 7-year deal. Let's just get rid of you and get you for 5 no-name prospects. That's another thing, too. When they traded Nolan Arenado, they didn't get much in return. You could have got a lot more in return for Nolan Arenado than just a couple prospects that are going to sit in your minor leagues, and probably in a couple years, all those players are going to be on another team. The Rockies are doing things backwards. They took a team that had serious potential to do great things, and slowly by slowly, little by little, they just chopped that team in half. Chopped it. Gave this guy away. Got rid of this guy. Slowly by slowly, they gave guys away. Just like that. Give him away. And now they're sitting here with Trevor Story, and they're in another predicament because their past decisions are hurting them right now. They're about to enter a rebuild going backwards. You know how hard that is? Walking backwards into a rebuild is not a good idea. Taking steps backwards, entering a rebuild is not a good idea. Rebuilds aren't a good thing. But certain teams, they can do it correctly. If you do rebuild correctly, you'll be in a good position. A team like the Miami Dolphins right now, they're in a little bit of a rebuild, but they are taking strides every single year, getting better. And they were 10-16 last season, right? Teams like, this might sound completely crazy, but even a team like the Bengals, I know they're going through a rebuild, but slowly, they're going to get better and better, right? And a team in the MLB, let's name a team like the Orioles. Even though they're struggling right now, they've got one of the best farm systems in the league. They're slowly getting better and better. The Colorado Rockies, let's think. Farm systems, not good enough to fill all that farm system with all this talent to put on the opening day roster. And slowly, they're going to take steps back. So they're already in a rebuild, I would say. And they're only getting deeper into the rebuild, which isn't a good thing. You don't want to go deeper into a rebuild. You want to go further away from a rebuild. Every team has to go through the rebuild. Every team does. But the Rockies, the problem with them is they're entering it backwards. There was no need to split up this team. There was no need to get rid of all these star players they had. There was no need. It wasn't like those players were out of their prime and old. Geez, Nolan Arenado is probably in the center of his prime right now. One of the best hitting and fielding third basemen in the league. In my opinion, he probably is the best third baseman in the league. He's in his prime right now. And you got rid of him for 5 prospects. Should have got way more. Not good for the Colorado Rockies. By the way, this news just came in. Dolphins cut Godwin. So he signed a 4-year contract, $51 million deal. High-paid linebacker, and they just cut him. So that's pretty big news there. Trevor Story rumors Rockies contract extension won't happen anytime soon. The Colorado Rockies reportedly aren't expected to sign all-star shortstop Trevor Story to a contract extension anytime soon. John Heyman of the MLB Network reported Tuesday the Rockies don't currently have the budget flexibility to make an offer to Story, who can become a free agent after the 2021 season. A 28-year-old Texas native burst onto the scene with 27 home runs in just 97 appearances during his 2016 rookie season, and he really hasn't stopped slugging ever since. Story has posted a 277, 343, and 535 triple slash line with 134 homers and 80 stolen bases in 603 regular season games over the past 5 seasons. His 17.9 WAR over the time span ranks 5th among MLB shortstops per Fangraphs. He explained when spring training got underway last week that he is focused on the upcoming season, not his contract situation. I'm focused on personally being the best team, and I can be, Story told reporters. I try not to look too far ahead. I'm trying to be where my feet are, which is right here in spring training with the Rockies. He'll carry an even larger offensive burden for Colorado in 2021 after standout third baseman Nolan Arenado was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals during the offseason. The Rockies' financial outlook is in wake of the COVID-19 pandemic doesn't improve by July, and lucrative long-term extension isn't feasible. The question becomes whether the front office becomes aggressive in trying to trade Story to a contender before he can hit the free agent market. Colorado was able to obtain 4 prospects and a 27-year-old left-hander, Austin Gomber, who posted a 1.86 ERA in 14 appearances, 4 starts last season. For Arenado, and further could boost the depth in its system with a Story blockbuster before the July 31st deadline. Yeah, they can further do their depth system, but here's the thing. If you don't get rid of Nolan Arenado, you don't get rid of all these players, you could still have a serious contending team. Whether the Rockies are still in playoff contention, what they aren't, as the date moves closer, will be also a factor. The team was 26-34 last year, finishing 4th in the NL West. Story and company opened the 2021 campaign April 1st against the reigning World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. So we'll see how it all plays out. But sitting here right now, if I was a Rockies fan, this isn't good. And maybe you do get a lot, but here's the thing. Here's what I'm asking. You thought you were going to get a lot for Nolan Arenado. Outside of the one very good pitcher you got, prospect-wise, and that's another thing, too, the prospect. You don't know prospects, I get it. I love prospects. I love to follow them. I think it's great to get a guy that comes up through the system that you've been watching for a while, then come play for your team. I'm all for that. But for a team like the Rockies here in a situation where they're trying to trade all these pieces and they're trying to get a right roster to be a rebuilding team, those prospects that you're getting, are those guys really going to be fitting on this roster? Or are those guys just going to be kind of just, they're just going to be, forgotten about? Because that's the problem. A lot of teams do that. They forget about prospects. The Yankees have done it many times where they will be too focused on getting the biggest name player, they just trade away all their prospects. And then you look back and you're like, geez, man, we could have had that guy. That guy could have been on our team starting every 5 days, right? And then that's the thing. Every team does it. But the Rockies are not doing it well. Because the Rockies should realize Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story, they're still relatively young. Like I said, he's only 5 seasons into his career. And Nolan Arenado, late 20s, I think? Right? It's not like the guys are 37 years old and at the end of their career. These guys could still be pivotal parts of this team, even if you're going through a little bit of a rebuild. Right? The Rockies are getting rid of everything for no reason. There's no need. They were in a fine position with Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado. And now they're getting rid of Nolan Arenado. And more than likely, Trevor Story will be eventually gone. Unless if Trevor Story has a bad year this year and they're not going to be able to get much for him, I wouldn't be surprised if Nolan Arenado is traded mid-year at the trade deadline. Especially if they can't get a deal done. And I get it, Nolan Arenado, he's going to say that he's okay with it. But deep down inside, he's probably tough. I mean, not Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story. Deep down inside, he's probably a little frustrated too. Because you got to realize too, I'm sure he would much rather be on a contender right now than the Colorado Rockies. Because the Rockies right now, they're not a contender. They're not really close to being a contender. To be honest, they're not really that close. They're not. And what's going to happen with Nolan Arenado, or what's going to happen with Trevor Story, I don't really know. But this is the first step of the Nolan Arenado situation, where you give him up and you don't get much in return. I will change my view on the Rockies a little bit if you give up Nolan Arenado, but you get a good amount in return. You got one prospect, big name. You got one good prospect pitcher. Other than that, the other prospects are guys that still have to learn and learn and learn and learn. They could be sitting in AA and AAA. That's not going to help your major league roster. So we'll see how it plays out. But right now, the Rockies are not in a great position. So I just want to look at some of Trevor Story's numbers. Let's take a look at these. Let's see. So Trevor Story stats. And like I said, there was some rumors about him going to the Yankees early on in the offseason, but that's not going to happen. The Yankees have Gleyber Torres, people. Like I get it. People love to start. I don't know what it is with Yankees fans sometimes, but they love to start talks with Gleyber Torres involved. Like, Gleyber Torres is our shortstop. He's our starting shortstop. He's our guy, right? Gleyber Torres is our guy. I don't like when people, and a lot of times Yankees fans do this, and I don't mind, because sometimes it's fun to, just brainstorm and just think of, different trades. I understand that. But Nolan Arenado, he's our guy, right? He's our guy. So last season, let's look at last season's stats. So he played, let's see. So last season he played 12, wait, no, that can't be correct. Okay, so, alright, so, let's see here. Alright, so let's get the numbers up. For some reason, the MLB.com numbers were just not correct. Alright, so, let's see. Alright, so Trevor Story, let's look at his numbers here. Let's get these back up. For some reason, these numbers weren't showing up earlier. So, Trevor Story, stats. Boom. All right, so Trevor Story stats last season, he had a 289 batting average, 11 home runs, 28 RBIs, and a OPS of 874. So that was good. He's played 5 seasons with Colorado. Last season, he obviously played 59 games in the 60-game season. He's another guy, too. He could stay healthy. 145 games, 157, 145, then 59 last season. He missed 1 game last season, so he still remained healthy. 68 hits. He had 41 runs scored. Obviously, batted 289, which is really good. 13 doubles. He had 11 home runs, and you see in the seasons where he plays where it's a full 162, he could hit 37 home runs. He did that. He had 100 RBI, 108 RBI season. Last season, he had 28 RBIs. He's a guy that can draw walks. And he's a guy that doesn't strike out much either. His slugging percentage is very good. Last season, he obviously batted 289. His lowest batting season was 239. Which was in 2017, which actually, if you look at it, his power numbers were up, but his batting average is a little lower. But other than that, he's a very consistent 277 batting average, and that's very consistent. I mean, 277 batting average, I mean, that's really good. I mean, that is really good. And, I'm a big fan of consistency, and having a 277 batting average is really, really solid. So, that's good to see. That's good to see, obviously for him, and obviously to see that he's still playing well like that. But, as for the Rockies, this could be another star player that you're getting rid of. So, we'll see how it all plays out. But that's for the Trevor Story rumors. Comment down below your thoughts on the Rockies situation, Trevor Story, stuff like that. Coming up next, we got the Chris Godwin. Expected to get a franchise tag from the Buccaneers. This will be the first big move involving a wide receiver. Why this is pivotal for the Buccaneers, and they're trying to go back to back Super Bowl championships. Coming up next. All right. So the Dolphins cut Kyle Van Noy, which was interesting. So the Dolphins cut Kyle Van Noy, which was really interesting. I want to just get to this really quickly before I get to Chris Godwin. So the Dolphins cut Kyle Van Noy. This news just came in literally 15 minutes ago. Miami moves on from veteran linebacker after just 1 season, and he signed a 4-year, $51 million deal. So he's still 3 more years left of that deal. He was one of the hot players on the market last season in free agency, and the Dolphins were able to get their hands on him, which, I mean, it's not, and he had to sign a 4-year, $51 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. So they're clearing up cap space with all that guaranteed money. That's a lot, which is interesting because, I mean, I get it. I mean, his PFF, he had a 61 Pro Football Focus grade, but I mean, he was decent. They're gonna save about $10 million in cap, but it's gonna be interesting, which means they're gotta be making a move, which is gonna be interesting because it's odd because he's a veteran for a young team. It was a lot of money, but he was one of the hot linebackers on the market, one of the hot players on the market, meaning, he was one of the guys that a lot of teams were targeting. And, when you heard his name, when New England said they were going to let him walk in free agency, there's a lot of teams that were calling up about him. There was a lot of teams that were interested. And the Dolphins were able to capitalize, and it was a 4-year, $51 million deal. And now for him to get released is a little interesting. But it's a lot of cap space stuff. And you're going to see that. You're going to see some surprising releases. You're going to see teams release some players that might be surprising, or teams release players that are going to make an impact. And that's because of the whole cap space stuff. So, we'll see how that goes, but that's very interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, so let's get into the Chris Godwin stuff here. So Chris Godwin rumors, things are headed toward Bucs using franchise tag on the receiver. So obviously Chris Godwin, receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in my opinion, a really big part of their Super Bowl run and ultimately winning the Super Bowl last season. I thought a big part was Chris Godwin, and a big part was, his success throughout the year, his success throughout the playoffs, and he was a big factor winning the Super Bowl. And I know everyone's going to talk about Mike Evans. They're going to talk about guys like Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette and Jason Pierre-Paul and guys like that, Shaquille Barrett and Tom Brady. Everyone's going to talk about that. But he's one of the more underrated receivers in the league. And Chris Godwin has said he's going to want, Chris Godwin has came out and said this. He said he'll do anything to stay in the Buccaneers. He said he'll take a pay cut as long as it matters to stay in the Buccaneers. And I think that's smart because I think he knows that he wants to win another Super Bowl. I think the Buccaneers know that they want to win another Super Bowl. And I think teams and I think a lot of these players on the Buccaneers are unselfish, and which is really pivotal in order to win a Super Bowl. Because Super Bowl teams, you a lot of times notice they're unselfish. There are a lot of players that want to go out there, that want to just go out there. They're going to get paid, but they want to go out there and win. And a lot of times you see those Super Bowl teams, and you see teams like the Buccaneers who might not have the most screeching talent out there. They might have a bunch of good players. I mean, outside of Tom Brady, who's the best quarterback of all time, but they have a lot of good talent, but it might not be. You might have a lot of guys like in that secondary is full of a lot of rookies. There was a lot of rookies. There was a lot of young players on that defensive side of the ball, which led to a lot of less contract, stuff like that. So players on his team, and this is one of the more unselfish Super Bowl teams I've ever seen, because a lot of times players and even coaches at times, but mostly players, if they win a Super Bowl, if they're a big part of a big team or something, whatever the case may be, whether that's a playoff run, whether it's a Super Bowl, whatever the case may be, if they're a big part of something that was successful, they're going to, that next season, want to go out and get a lot of money. A guy like a Mike Evans, he's a guy that might want a lot of money now, that might want to go out. But that's not the case with Mike Evans. He's a guy right now that has already expressed, that has already said to many people that he'll take a pay cut as long as it means to keep this team together. Chris Godwin, same thing. He said he thinks he does deserve the money. He says he thinks he deserves a little bit more money, so they're going to give him a franchise tag, right? More than likely here, this isn't confirmed yet. More than likely give him the franchise tag, which is interesting because it's showing you that teams, players, coaches are more and more trying to keep these teams together. And that's one of the things here with the Buccaneers. They're trying to keep this team together the best they can. And doing that right now is keeping Chris Godwin. And I really believe Chris Godwin is one of the more underrated receivers in the league. And he had a very good season in fantasy football, actually. But this is a guy, too, that, and this could be one of these things, too, because I've always talked about this, with one-year wonders and players who have great years. And Chris Godwin, not this most recent season, but the year before that, he had a very good year. And it was really his first big season, which it could have been in many different reasons, but it was just really his first big season. And there's a lot of people out there, including myself, who are wondering, can this guy keep this up week in and week out? And that was, I think, one of the big things, was can this guy keep this up week in and week out? And he obviously did that the first season, but then after that, we were all wondering, is when he comes back next season, can he do what he did last season? And he showed last year, this most recent year, that he can do that. And he battled some injuries, battled some up and downs, but for the most part, it was a very good season for him. It was another quality year for him, and that's what's big. So the Buccaneers are going to try their best to keep this team together, and it starts right here with keeping Chris Godwin. So Chris Godwin rumors, things are headed toward Bucs using franchise tag and wide receiver. Chris Godwin is an unrestricted free agent this offseason, but Jenna Lane of ESPN reported that Tampa Bay Buccaneers have no intention of letting him leave. Though the plan is to sign the receiver to a long-term deal, Line reported things are headed toward the team using the franchise tag. Godwin has indicated he would accept the tag, which would pay him about $16.5 million in 2021. The salary would represent a significant jump after Godwin earned about $4.6 million in his first 4 years combined. The 25-year-old is coming off of an up-and-down season in which he finished second on the team with 65 catches, 840 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was slowed by multiple injuries in 2020, but he was also vital to the squad's run in the Super Bowl title. Like I said, he wasn't what he was 2 years ago, but he still had a good year. Injuries definitely slowed him down a little bit, but if he can stay healthy, he should be very good. And like I said, he was a pivotal part in that Super Bowl run. He definitely turned it on in the playoffs. Godwin had 5 catches for 110 yards in the NFC Championship game, win over the Green Bay Packers, also scoring a touchdown in the first-round victory over the Washington football team. He can be one of the best in the NFL at his position, finishing 2019 with 86 catches for 1,333 yards and 9 touchdowns in just 14 games. He ranked second in the league in receiving yards per game behind only Michael Thomas. Keeping a dynamic player opposite opposite, Mike Evans should ensure the Buccaneers once again have one of the top passing attacks in the NFL. Tom Brady helped the team finish second in the league in passing yards and touchdowns in 2020. The downside is Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski, two of Brady's favorite targets, are also impending free agents. A high cap number for Godwin could prevent the Buccaneers from re-signing one or both of those veterans. So here's my whole thing. If I was the Buccaneers here, and right, this is their decision. But if I was the Buccaneers, I would, if you had to choose, let's say you had four guys. You had Gronkowski, you had Gronkowski, you obviously had Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. If you had to choose two of them to re-sign or one of them to really give the money, I would go ahead and say you give the money to probably Gronk. Not much money, though. Like, Gronk even said, too, he'll take a pay cut. But, Gronk's also on the fringe right now of retiring, so you got to see how that plays out. I think he'll come back, but, you don't want to give him a long-term deal then have him retire mid-deal, right? You gotta base your decision off of that, too. So, that's something big there, too. But, if I was the Buccaneers, I personally wouldn't give I wouldn't give Antonio Brown that much money. Okay. I wouldn't even mind if you let him walk. Just because he wasn't a pivotal part, right? He was good, but he's not a Chris Godwin. He's not a Mike Evans. And, Rob Gronkowski caught 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. So, you got to see how that goes. But, with Chris Godwin here, he was pivotal. He was big in the playoffs. He really turned it on in the playoffs, like I said, like I read. 110 yards against the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game, and he scored a touchdown in the first round victory over the Washington football team. So, 110 yards against the Packers, a touchdown, that's pretty good if you ask me. And you're going to want to keep a guy like that back. And another thing with Chris Godwin, he's a very excellent route runner. He's very, very quick. He's a guy that can run slant, go deep, whatever the case may be. That's another thing, too. He's a multi-dimensional guy. He can go deep, he can run slant. And that's another thing, too, what's great with his speed. If he runs slant, he's going to get the ball and he's going to turn it upfield. He's not going to get the ball and get tackled immediately. He's going to get the ball, turn it upfield. And you give him a good quarterback, he's going to thrive. And they've got that in Tom Brady. So, we'll see how it goes. But, if you had to choose Antonio Brown or Rob Gronkowski, are also impending free agents. Antonio Brown, no. You focus on Godwin first. Because Evans, he's got a contract, but he said he's willing to take a pay cut. Focus on Godwin first. Because that's going to be really how it is. So let's just look at Godwin's numbers here, and we'll get into the final topics. Okay, so Chris Godwin's numbers here. So it's 68 receptions, 840 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 12.9 was his average in the league. And that's big. He's played 4 seasons with the Bucs. He's still young. He's only 26 years old, so he's still young. He, obviously had the 1,000-yard season, 1,333-yard season, and an 840 last season. He only played 12 games, but his potential is really big. I mean, he only played 12 games. He missed 4, but that's the one big thing. If he plays a full 16, he could be really good. That season the season where he put up 15.5 average, and that's another thing, too. He averages, in his career, 14.5 yards per catch. Like I said, he could be a deep ball receiver. He could also be a guy running a slant across the middle. Give him the ball, he turns it upfield for a lot. So, he's a big-time player, and this is definitely big for them, especially as the deep ball. He's definitely pivotal. So, Chris Godwin, this could be one of the big free agents. Like I said, as things start to, heat up and stuff like that, you're going to start to see more and more players, things like that. So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, it's pretty big for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they want to continue their stretch there of trying to make the Super Bowl again. So, now we move into the New York sports update here on fantasy basketball and hockey and all that good stuff. So yesterday in the NBA, the Trailblazers won, Cavaliers won, Pelicans won, Nuggets won, 76ers won, and the Mavericks won. Nets also won yesterday, 124-113. We moved to 23-13 on the season. We won in overtime. Big win for the Nets. Kyrie Irving at 27, Harden at 30 points, Kyrie at 27. Bruce Brown had another big game with 23 points. And that was a big 3-game. That was a big 3-guy stretch there. Claxton had a big day. Harden got him involved. Harden with a triple-double, 15 assists for him. Claxton also had 17 points, and Harden added on with another 30 points. So a good win for the Brooklyn Nets. To get into today's games, we got the Wizards, Grizzlies. I'll give Wizards the win. Clippers, Celtics, give Clippers the win. Heat, Hawks, give Heat the win. Knicks, Spurs, I'll give Knicks the win. Bucks, Nuggets, give Bucks the win. And Lakers, Suns, give Lakers the win. Knicks are rolling right now. And as for college basketball, yesterday the 2 ranked games were Oklahoma State won, and Virginia won as well. Today's games, we got Baylor, West Virginia. I'll give Baylor the win. Arkansas, South Carolina, give Arkansas the win. Alabama, Auburn, give Alabama the win. Big game between Michigan and Illinois. I'll give Michigan the win. TCU, Texas Tech, give Texas Tech the win. Texas, Iowa State, give Texas the win. And Wisconsin, Purdue, give Purdue the win. Kentucky also plays today. Kentucky comes to this game 8-14. Ole Miss comes to this game 13-10. Ole Miss is 3-point favorites. This game comes on, or this is the over/under is 131.5 for this game. This game comes on today, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. I'm going to tell you this. I'll give Kentucky the win if they can close out the game. That's really the big deal. It's closing out the games for Kentucky. It's closing out the games. That's all it is. Closing out the games for Kentucky. We are a team, basketball, all levels of basketball. The game comes down to the final 2 minutes of the game. Realistically. Kentucky has to be better in those final couple minutes, right? They have to be better. We blew the game against Florida. We blew the game against Tennessee. We've blown a lot of games. I could really go back, but they're really early on in the year, and we're now, we got one, after today's games, we got one more game left, and then it's SEC tournament and hopefully March Madness. So, we got to win these games. Like I said, we want to finish out on a high note. Right now, we are 3-1. I said, final 6 games, let's finish out on a high note. Now, right now, we are 3-1. Let's make that 4-1, right? So, go Kentucky. We got to find a way to win these games. Even if we don't make the March Madness, at least finish the year on a high note. Am I right? At least do that. So let's get into the NHL. Around the NHL, yesterday's games, the Sharks won, Blues won, Golden Knights won, Maple Leafs won, Canucks won, Hurricanes won, and Senators won. Today we got the Flyers, Penguins. I'll give Flyers to win. Islanders, Devils. I'll give Islanders to win. Blue Jackets, Red Wings. Give Blue Jackets to win. Canadians, Senators. Give Canadians to win. Jets, Canucks. Give Jets to win. Predators, Hurricanes. Give Hurricanes to win. And Lightning, Stars. Give Lightning to win. Rangers also play today. Rangers coming in this game 7-9-3. Sabres coming in this game 6-10-3. This game, the over/under is 5.5 for this game. This game comes on today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us on MSG Buffalo and also MSG Plus. So I'll be watching on MSG Plus. But yeah, Rangers coming in today. I'm going to give the Rangers the win, and I'll tell you why, okay? The Sabres have struggled. The Sabres are one of the worst teams in the NHL. And the Rangers obviously haven't been the best either this season. But the Sabres are last in the East Division. And they've just been struggling left and right. They can't score goals. They're not playing great defense. Their goalie's been injured. Jack Eichel hasn't been great the past couple games, right? So they've been struggling. The Rangers have to take advantage of a struggling team. I'll give them the win. And we're without Artemi Panarin. And that's big because we need him. But, guys like Colin Blackwell, we get Filipino back tonight. Hopefully Igor Shesterkin does well in that. When we get guys like that. Filipino, he's a huge addition back. Defense. Our defense hasn't been amazing. With him returning, and hopefully Panarin to return soon, because a lot of people don't realize how big Panarin really is. If you've seen Rangers games with Panarin in it, it's huge. Panarin is a huge factor. So it's tough to win when you don't have Panarin. But realistically, you got to realize Panarin is a big time asset for this team, and we're missing him, and that definitely hurts. But guys like Colin Blackwell and different guys like that are starting to step up a little bit. So if defense gets better and our offense starts to play well as well, we will win this game. So I'll give Rangers the win. Yesterday, in the baseball, Royals won, A's won, Brewers won, Angels won, Rangers won, Dodgers won, Cubs won, Astros won, Braves won, Phillies won. Or actually, no, that was a tie game. My bad. Remember that game there. Twins won, Marlins won, and Blue Jays won. Or no, that was a tie game as well. Marlins beat the Mets 2-0, and the Yankees won yesterday 5-4. Yankees moved to 1-1 in spring training. Good win for the Yankees. Cole started. had some good stuff. He let up some runs, but it was his first spring training start. Can't be too angry with him there. But a good start for him. Today we got the Cardinals, Marlins. I'll give Cardinals the win. Red Sox, Rays, I'll give Red Sox the win. Tigers, Pirates, give Tigers the win. Braves, Twins, give Braves the win. Phillies, Blue Jays, give Blue Jays the win. Mets, Astros, I guess I'll give Mets the win. Let's see. Rangers, White Sox, give White Sox the win. Cubs, Royals, give Cubs the win. Brewers, A's, give Brewers the win. Mariners, Indians, give Mariners the win. Padres, Diamondbacks, give Padres the win. Angels, Reds, give Reds the win. And Dodgers, Giants, give Dodgers the win. Yankees also play today. Yankees coming in this game 1-1. Orioles coming in this game 1-1. Like I said, Yankees coming in this game 1-1. Sanchez hit a homer yesterday. Also, there was a grand slam as well. Not by Sanchez, by another player. I'll give Yankees the win. But, it's obviously spring training, so. That's what we got for that. Still really good to see baseball. Even if it's spring training, it's still good to see baseball. As for fantasy basketball, I'm currently losing 321 to 101. So getting beat pretty hard here. But hopefully I can make a comeback here. Today I've got going Trae Young, Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, Pascal Siakam, or Jimmy Butler, Jonas Valanciunas, and Kemba Walker. Injury report here. Jimmy Butler's day-to-day. Butler knee is listed as questionable for Tuesday's game against Atlanta. So that's big. I need him to return there. I need him big time there. Siakam is still out. Their game got postponed. And Jeremy Grant is day-to-day. Grant quadriceps did not practice Tuesday, but Coach Dwayne Casey is hopeful he can play Wednesday against the Raptors. Rob Beard of the Detroit News reports. So that's what I got for that. That's what I got for the fantasy basketball there. And as for fantasy hockey, I'm currently losing 18-9, but I got a lot of players going today, so hopefully I can turn around. I've got going Mika Zibanejad, Jack Eichel, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Jamie Benn, Brock Bossier, Nico Ehlers, Joe Pavelski, Jeff Petrie, Ryan Ellis, and Shea Weber. And my goalie is Semyon Varlamov. Got him going there. Injury report, Jacob Markstrom, some new injury to him. This came out yesterday as well, but head coach Jeff Ward said Monday that Markstrom upper body is close to a return. Pat Steinberg of Sportsnet 960, The Fan, reports. So hopefully he comes back soon because I need him there. But yeah, that's what I got for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Another Yankees game on today, although. A good Yankees game, and then obviously Yankees games all through the week. Games pretty much every day. A couple off days here and there, but for the most part, there's always games on. And even when the Yankees have an off day, it's another game on. And Yankees for the most part playing a lot though, so that should be good. But yeah, with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.